Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Michael D. Shaw is my guest. Mike, how are you?
Hey, just great. Watching the Democrats self-destruct.
Well, it's now becoming more and more clear, especially since the unfortunate and untimely assassination of Charlie Kirk, that they are the party of violence, that they're openly advocating violence. They can't help it. And that they are fomenting terror. This is predictable. It happened, a lot of it happened because of the laxity or even connivance, you might say, of the former regime called the Biden regime, whoever was in charge. And now it's all as Obama's minister Jeremiah Wright famously said, the chickens have come home to roost. And that's where we are. I am disappointed so far with the office of the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. I'd like to see more prosecutions of terror, of those who are supporting the terrorists. I'd like to see a little bit more action in terms of the people who were harassing President Trump, the lawfare people who were interfering in an election, who were creating artificial laws and using them to prosecute the former president. And we now know were involved with crimes themselves, allegedly, particularly New York Attorney General Letitia James, right. Mortgage fraud. This member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, mortgage fraud. Ironically, these are people who went after people involved in that. And I mean, the stupidity or the greed is unbelievable to me. And I'm sure other things with all of them. The corruption stinks. And I just would like to see prosecution. I think the indictment of James Comey is a step in the right direction, but I don't know why they're not indicting every one of those 52 former intelligence agents who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. Talk about election.
I think I know why they're going slow on this. And to understand it, you have to put yourself under the mindset that you and I have. All right. It was obvious to us from the beginning how corrupt all this was, how terrible the other side is. But you have to remember that the normies aren't focused on this all the time. All right. And I'm sorry, and I've said this before, in an atheistic country like the US, a lot of people worship authority. So while it's a true statement that the Democratic Party is a criminal gang, I don't think there's any doubt about that. The problem is, how does that sit with people, quote unquote, good people, your friends and neighbors that have been Democrats for all these years? I mean, let's do it in a microcosm. What about all these great Jewish liberals that are finally realizing that they've been supporting an anti-Semitic party since at least FDR, if not farther back?
I wonder if any of that even matters. The fact of the matter is that Trump was elected with a popular vote and the electoral vote by people who know damn well what's going on. Yeah. I don't like, for example, that they're going to allegedly, I don't know what this will happen, they're going to trot out James Comey with thuggish looking agents wearing flak jackets. I mean, it's fun. It makes you feel like a sense of catharsis, but that's how they did things. That's what they did. They pulled an elderly man out of bed at 3:00 in the morning in his underwear, and they trotted him out on the front lawn with CNN, filming. That's how they did it. That's the thugs that they were. I don't think we should go down that path. I think we should quietly prosecute him. and get a conviction and put him in jail without any fanfare, without any media. The same thing with all these people. You're right. The American people don't either. They don't care, or they're so imbued by authority that they're going to rally to their support. I say,
imagine, Chuck, because politics seems to be genetic for a lot of people. Imagine you've been a Democrat, your family, and your grandparents, and your great-grandparents, and now, unless you're a complete imbecile, you're being confronted with the fact that this is a massively corrupt, destructive institution. All right? A lot of people have trouble with that, just like a lot of people have trouble with the fact that the whole COVID response was completely corrupt.
Look, Mike, I agree with you, but the fact is, a lot of people don't have trouble with it, like the people who elected Trump. Look,
right,
I mean,
there are the people that
they should be ignored. They should be marginalized. We shouldn't pay any attention to those people.
Yeah,
we should see our system do what it was elected to do: go after this corruption. Because if they don't, and they basically not fail, but they fall short of the mission of what they were elected to do, then the other people are going to come back and they're going to put all of us in jail. I mean, they have to get this thing done, and they should stop talking to the media, stop talking to Fox News. Pam Bondi ought to get her fat face off of the television and get the job done. Start being the Attorney General and get these indictments. Get all of this stuff going. And it's late already. They're in the administration now. I think it's 8 months later, and there hasn't been any indictments. We now know, for example, that 275 FBI assets, agents, whatever, instigated the attack of January 6th. The American people don't know this because the media is not covering it. I say, who cares? Go forward with the prosecutions, even if they don't talk about it at all, and get this thing handled, because this was, we understand the truth of what happened there. We understand the truth of what happened in the 2020 election. Get the election reform done. Get prosecutions of people who were involved in election malfeasance on the state and national level. I mean, otherwise, they're going to lose the mandate that they've been handed. That's what
but I want you to remember that you have the possibility. Remember, everybody is not like you and me, right? You run the risk of creating a Reichstag fire here, because, as I said, you and I have known forever how corrupt the other side is, all right? But you run a very real risk of turning the other side into victims. It's already happening. You look at the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois and Newsom in California. I'm afraid if you beat them up too much.
Don't beat them up. Just ignore them. What I'm saying is like the answer to the Nazi protests at Skokie, Illinois, right? It was right through a Jewish neighborhood. There they are, Nazis. That buffoon, I forget his name, with the uniform and the swastikas. Very aggravating. Who?
George Lincoln.
Was it George Lincoln Rockwell? Yeah. Complete buffoons. Obviously, a false flag operation. Anyways, where did they get the money to do this? And the media attention and the Time magazine putting them on the cover. This is the new right. Ignore it. Don't be provoked. And that's what they did. A couple of cycles.
I don't know that you're thinking this through all the way. Let's use the example of the case a couple of days ago in Chicago, when the police were told to stand down. And
that's
not
illegal.
help.
That's illegal.
Okay.
That's
okay, but here's the problem. All right, you can make a stupid but loud case for the fact that you have competing authority here now. Look, you and I know that one side is right and the other side is wrong. But I think what you're failing to recognize here is a lot of people are very stupid. All right. And if you create a situation where well, it was a chain of command, and the Chicago police said so and so. Now you're starting to attack, as you should, but now you're starting
Yeah,
to
there's a
attack.
way to do it without attacking them. I'll use an example.
All
Warren G. Harding, right? He's gone down in history as a terrible president. He actually was a great president. And the reason he's gone down as a terrible president is because he was quite successful. In 1921 or 1922, he was aware of a national conspiracy by the Communist Party and all of their fellow travelers and apparatchiks to bring the country to a halt by means of strikes of national unions. And we're talking about the important unions, the railroads, the coal companies, the oil companies, the industrial functions of the country, the media, the big transportation. They were going to bring the whole thing to a halt. They were planning on doing this. This was an open attempt to overthrow the government and implement their bizarre fantasy of a communist state. I mean, this was before enough people became aware of the evils of communism. People were really asleep at that time. Don't forget, this is before the Soviet Union. It was before Nazi Germany. This is the 1920s. And they wanted to provoke Harding to declare national, martial law, just like they wanted to do, by the way, during COVID. But let's not go there. They wanted to get him to call out the army, and then they'll have their, it's like what they did to Kerensky in Russia.
Yeah.
Eventually they could then have their overthrow. But what Harding did not take the bait. He did not discuss it with the media. Most people don't even know about this because there was no media. What he did was he quietly spoke to the respective governors of these states and told them quietly what was going on and that they should call out the local National Guard under their auspices and work with the White House, but not involve the federal government so directly. They could perhaps play a supportive role in terms of giving them information and whatnot. But for the most part, keep it local, go after these people instant by instant and diffuse it, not with big flourishes of support, of media with people with flak jackets. Do it strategically, do it surgically, do it carefully. Don't take credit for it. Just get the thing done quietly. And they were extremely successful. It never happened. The plug was pulled out from it. There was no grand provocative incident that they were looking for. That's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to take pot shots at ICE agents to create this incident that's going to trigger a national civil war. They keep talking about the Civil War. That's why they shot Charlie Kirk out in the open. They assassinated him.
But now you're arguing my point.
I mean, if they wanted to take out Charlie Kirk, they could have taken him out while he was grocery shopping or something. They didn't have to do it with the media flying in the public and everybody's viewing the movie. It was like the Zapruder film now. It's our national event. That was very deliberate, I think. I know I'm putting on a tin hat here, so be it. These are instances where they were expecting the response to be riots, just like what they did after George Floyd. They were hoping for a revolution. They didn't expect prayer and respectful, at a service that was actually quite profound and quite religious, and people, taking stock of what was going on. And maybe it's because we have, in some ways, more free media now, even with the suppression, that words can get, information can get out. The thing is that they didn't have that kind of boom that they were hoping for. In fact, it backfired. And I think that now they're trying to do it with the shooting ICE agents. They want to get, this is like what Harding dealt with. The fact is we have to do like Harding did. Maybe our names will all go down as dirt in the history books when they're written by communist historians like Harding's did. So be it. As I said last week, we can rest easy. We'll be in heaven. We will have done right. We will have known truths, and we will have identified truths and brought the country back to an equilibrium. Maybe we don't get credit for it. We don't get to showcase with big showy events. But buffoons like Pritzker and those people, ignore them. Go in quietly they're doing it in Boston, by the way, in a very good way. There's no showing. We have a very communistic mayor here, very big showboat, very popular, governor too. But they're not messing around. They're just basically quietly doing their job. They're working with local police departments who are on their side, giving them information about the bad illegal aliens, and they are quietly going in and picking them up without anybody even seeing it. That's how it needs to be done. Not this kind of thing where they pull into town with tanks. I mean, it's not going to be productive. It plays into their hands.
Well, as I said, you're arguing my point that
Yeah.
that if you make a martyr out of a Brandon Johnson and Pritzker and so on, now as you said, ultimately I don't care. But the trouble is that in the media environment you're in, it might turn to be counterproductive. If Pam Bondi indicts all these people, you've created all these martyrs. I'm not saying you shouldn't be.
Well, not if it's not. It could be done in the right way. In other words, she can specifically find specific people and name specific charges, and just quietly do the indictment and let them scream. I don't say. Look, should she indict Pritzker? No. I mean, those people. You're right. They're too big, and they're going to become martyrs. Ignore them. I see people calling. We should now put Hillary in jail. No. I mean, it might feel good. I'd love to see them behind bars, but let's work with what you can do to really dismantle the deep state. Take on some of these former intelligence people who are releasing information. They were committing felonies. Go after them, say, this is a felony. You release classified information here that could have damaged national security and could have caused loss of life. Thus, no one is above the law, and we are indicting you. They wouldn't get much sympathy if they did it in a way that was dispassionate, that wasn't showy, that just simply dealt with the facts and just piece by piece did the job and moved forward without fear. They were elected to do that. Most Americans would applaud that. Most Americans support deporting violent, criminal, illegal aliens. They need to just quietly get the job done professionally. They don't need necessarily to call out the army. I don't think they should. They could call out extra security people to handle these idiots, and just quietly go in with some extra people around to deal with that without falling into their hands.
Well, whatever you call it, though, if you make a foray into Chicago to support ICE with whatever way you do it, it's going to become a cause. And as I say,
minimize. I mean, maybe you're right, but they should go into Chicago with just the minimum amount of people protecting the lives of the ICE agents, and just as quietly as possible get the thing done. If they're walking into an incident,
right. But
I mean, that's part of being professional. I mean, if they see they're walking into an incident where you have ICE, where you have not ISIS, I mean Antifa, not that there's a big difference. Don't go there. It's like a military operation. I mean, if you look at any classic study of military history, the way to attack an enemy isn't to go right in, up front and then get shot. You send people, even the Bible talks about this, some of the battles with the Canaanites. You send a little contingent here, a little other group goes over there, and then they come around, and then you have a few snipers, maybe pop a few bullets, but you do it strategically, and you do it using, tactical intelligence. I mean, these people need to understand. I mean, I'm not a military historian, but, you study the way that they conducted some of these battles. It was the Battle of Antietam comes to mind. I think it was like that.
Yeah.
The way to capture the enemy, catch them off guard. Approach it like that. Approach it like a war, but do it in a way that, you're not going to get a big showy victory where everybody sits around singing hymns. You're going to do it by piecemeal, pulling them apart, just like they're trying to do to us.
Are you taking into account, though, how polarized the country is?
Oh, I know.
that you can be an AOC or a Brandon Johnson or this Jones character from Virginia. And let's not forget the fact that he has not been condemned, this Jones guy.
Is he the one that called for the death of conservatives?
Yes. There wasn't a single Democrat that condemned him, maybe except for Joe Scarborough, who's not really a political figure anymore. But you have to take into account what you're dealing with here, okay? There are too many people that think no matter what happens, it's okay because Trump, all right?
Yeah, but
Let's burn down
not,
Chicago.
I guess that my point, Mike, is that there's not enough of them, and their numbers are actually dwindling. Yes, those people are going to goose step right into the grave. I mean, they don't care. They're brain dead. I mean, those are empty shells. It's like they've been programmed with a computer chip in the back of their brains. I know people like that. They are not to be talked to. They are not to be dealt with. They are to be ignored. And, you know, with this guy and this Jones character who called for the death of people, you carefully and openly simply talk about what he did. And you talk about it over and over again.
Right,
and you're going to peel off enough people. You're not going to get the hardcore. They're not. Who cares? The point
there
is,
hasn't been a single Democrat official.
With them. They'll go into. They'll get theirs eventually. The point is that right now, the tactical battlefield is that you just peel off a few people. You know, a small percentage.
Well, but that's the point. So it's happening slowly. So when you ask the question, DOJ, are you there? Well, they're proceeding slowly.
Are they, though? I don't know what they're doing. That's the question. I mean, I don't trust Pam Bondi. As I said, she's a protege of Jeb Bush. I mean, you know, this isn't a MAGA person. This isn't, you know, I'm sure she knows what's going on. I mean, after Trump basically, I think, called her into the Oval Office and read her the Riot Act, she then indicted Comey. Fine. Okay. But she's still, it doesn't seem like, and I mean, I'm also disappointed with the FBI. I mean, I know that Kash Patel, I mean, I've heard him enough on the Bannon show and, you know, over the years, he knows damn well what's going on. Why isn't he completely, I mean, they need to, that agency is filled with the, you know, people who are absolute deep state people. I mean, they need to get rid of all of them.
Hey, let's talk about that. That's his problem. All right. When I said before he was even appointed, and I'm looking at it just from a corporate management point of view. All right. You reach a point where you can't fix it. You got to burn it down. You got
to burn the whole thing down. And that's what he was going to do. He was going to level the FBI headquarters and build like a museum for deep state. I mean, why he should do it.
Here's what I'm saying, that he's given the impossible job. He knows very well that a higher percentage than he would admit of these agents are compromised. I told you, you know, maybe a couple of years ago on the show, that when I first moved to the DC area back in 2004, remember 2004, there was a woman who was working at the front desk of a gym that I belonged to.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to her and so on. I find out she's married to an FBI special agent. Unsolicited from me, and I was not a big friend of this lady, she just goes off on how the morale sucks, how the leadership is terrible, that her husband is so depressed, and how things have deteriorated. That's 21 years ago. It was already going bad. They should, if it were up to me, which it isn't, they should eliminate the agency. It's done. It's compromised. It will never be fixed.
Well, I know, and it got worse after that. Then you had Mueller and Comey and Wray and these other really, really rotten, corrupt people who completely turned it into a political.
So what's Patel supposed to do? Well, I'm given this job. I should really burn it all down, but you don't do that in the federal government, right? You have to try to reform.
I get that he can't do it. I mean, he and Bongino more so. They know what's going on. I mean, maybe they feel their own lives are threatened. I don't know. Their families are threatened. These are very serious people. No, these are very, very dangerous people. They need. I mean, I think that Hegseth is doing a pretty good job at defense. He's calling them in. He's redefining the mission of the War Department. He's getting rid of political correctness. He's returning standards of war. I hear him being absolutely pilloried on NPR this morning. I'm listening to the other side. Fine. You have these people, they're full of it. I mean, you had this morning, somebody actually called in and said, hey, how do you explain the fact that recruitment is way up for the first time since World War II? Yeah. How do you explain that? Oh, they had all these excuses. It's not Hegseth. It was actually Biden, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, of course.
They can say whatever they want. The fact is he's doing it. And people, I think that the military is pulling itself together as a result. They're getting rid of some of the bad people, and new people are enthusiastically signing up and getting into it.
I think it's a very good sign. And maybe it's easier to do that in the military because I don't really see Kash Patel attacking the rank and file to the extent that Hegseth did. Now, he couched it in, well, the generals and admirals all suck, which is probably true. And now the rank and file are in support because they hate the leadership, I'm sure. All right. With all the PC crap.
Right.
And, I mean, how would you like it if you were a guy that worked his way up to maybe, major or something, and you see a DEI hire, dozens of them being lifted up. So this has to be changed. But as you well know, as a student of history, there's been problems in the military for a long, long time.
Right. That could change overnight.
When a guy tried to expose that back in the early 1950s, it didn't go so well for him. Right.
Who was that?
And Joe McCarthy.
Oh, yeah, of course. It didn't go well for him, but he got a lot done. He was sacrificed for it. But he was right. And Trump is right. These people were willing to put their neck out. And I think
that's why he's a hero. But think about at the time, because I'm fairly knowledgeable about that whole situation. The fact that he had the temerity, people didn't even care about communists, this or that. How dare you attack the military?
Oh, I know, because of the Army McCarthy hearings.
Yeah.
Well, I think that actually McCarthy stepped in it on that one. Unfortunately, look, I mean, they set a trap and he walked right into it. That's what happens. I mean, it's a very difficult business to navigate. I mean, that's what they did to General Flynn.
But if you talk to the average person who knows about this, their explanation is, well, he was going after all these commies, but he really screwed up by going after the Army, which I would say, well, what? The Army was exempt? I mean,
no, he didn't screw up by going after them, but he did screw up by stepping into a particular booby trap that was set by by Walsh from Hale and Dorr. Welsh from Hale and Dorr. And I mean, look, that's unfortunate. You have to watch for that. It's hard. I mean, this is like, it's like you're going through a minefield, with you can step on something and, that's that. And
well, he was one of your New England guys. So was Welsh just a hired hand?
Yeah.
Or did he actually believe that
he was just a hired hand? In fact, right after that whole dramatic, histrionic, have you no shame, sir, attacking this young lad? After all that, he's walking away, he's like laughing. Oh, we really got him, didn't we? I mean, it was just, that was a plot. I mean, that was set up and McCarthy walked in it. Unfortunately, look, I think at the time, quite frankly, he was having a drinking problem. He was not well. I mean, it's just sad. I mean, this is what they're going to try to do to Trump. This is he's in his late 70s. He can't take this kind of burden. We need to have people step up and take some of the load off his shoulders.
Well, like Hedges.
Yeah, I think of the play Hamilton, and Washington thanked him because he took some of this burden off his shoulders in the middle of a war. He's dealing with all these crazy, bureaucracies and trying to get funding and trying to run everything. And Hamilton came along and he became his chief aide, and he kind of took over, and he was a patriot. He took over some of these things so Washington could do Washington while he handled some of the. I mean, this is what Trump needs. He needs people around him like that. I hope he has that. I don't know.
Well, Stephen Miller is kind of an attack dog, and
Stephen Miller is great. Yeah,
Pam Bondi isn't, and you're exactly right. How much she still harkens back to Jeb! !
That's who she is. Yeah, that's right, and that's a problem. I mean, it's not.
It was political, Chuck. Hey, she's a chick, and we had to put a woman in the job because it's been a woman.
I think that Trump trusted her because she was a very good lawyer representing him during the impeachment, and they knocked Gates out, of course, which was too bad because he would have been tremendous, and he needed to make a quick decision. He knows that things have to continue on, so he just grabbed her out because who else? I mean, you can't get, and now she's turning into another Jeff Sessions. He was like a weak noodle. He didn't do anything. He was a chair warmer for 4 years. I mean, then of course it got worse with Barr. The guy was a complete traitor, but horrible. And so there is a weak link there. RFK is unbelievable. He's a folk hero. He's taking this crap. That's a real rotten. I mean, we know how bad that is. The CDC, we're all going to resign. Good, let them go. I mean, cut them loose. There they are covering up.
Look at how they're going after him, and the facts don't even matter. Okay, the whole thing. I mean, the Tylenol business with autism. People were talking about this in like 2015. All right,
he's depending on studies at Harvard. I thought they love Harvard. Right? I mean, the Tylenol.
There's a lot of big money interests with pharma, and a lot of politicians are in place because of pharma. I mean, did you see how Bernie Sanders reacted when RFK started saying, "You got so much money from pharma"? No. Well, of course he did.
Well, his answer was, "We all did, and it doesn't matter." And then, of course, Elizabeth Warren is the worst. Oh, God. And then apparently this shows how the divide, how everything is, the country is so fractured, in that liberals have, I don't know if they voted her, but they seem to claim that she's the most honest person in Congress.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, I don't think the Boston Globe even would go along with that one. Not after the Pocahontas scandal. And there's so many others in Massachusetts. I mean, we know her better than the rest of the country. I mean, talk about just complete phonies. I mean, a complete fraud. And, she's the most honest, and they believe it. Anyway, the point is that the government, our elected administration, they're doing a good job, but they have to really put the gas to the floor a little bit and go after this deep state, or else they're going to get trapped.
Remember, the deep state has been around for a long time, and you are I mean, when they closed down AID, that was a huge shock. I mean, because this had been a scam for how many years? So the other thing is
one of the worst.
Yeah, I mean, again, you and I are prepared to appreciate how corrupt the government is. But if you're some true believer, regardless what party you're in, and you want to work through the system and do the right thing and donate your money and whatnot, it's like, I'm too cynical for that.
Just ignore them. I mean, I think it would be appropriate, for example, you talk about USAID. and the amount of money they gave to George Soros to basically give to violent terrorists in this
Yeah.
country. Why aren't they clawing it back? You know, all right, maybe we're not going to convict him. Fine, that might be a bite too big a bite, but they should. Chelsea Clinton, right? I know this might not be popular, but USAID paid for her wedding. They paid for her mansion, all under the guise of some phony thing that she set up. They gave Stacey Abrams, what was it, like $1.5 billion on the way out the door? Actually, that's something that's in the Department of, I know it's another department. I'm having a senior moment here, but the environmental, the EPA, right? Lee Zeldin, he's doing a good job. He's been able to impound that money. They have a corrupt federal judge saying that they can't, that it has to be held until they decide. But at least it's kept it out of her hands.
Well, that's the other problem. You have to go after these federal judges.
I think that they are starting to crumble. I mean, even people, I don't want to talk about this too much, but I'll just say that there are people in those courthouses who are talking against them. And there's a kind of a informal, questioning of some of their dictatorial activities. And the Supreme Court seems to be flying right. They just threw out a local judge who declared that Trump could not undo this Biden policy that gave special preference to Venezuelan refugees, right? I mean, so that's now been undone because that's the Constitution. I mean, the president regulates immigration policy, not anyone else, not the judiciary, not the Congress. That is a direct presidential prerogative. So they're restoring that. They're doing it carefully. I think that is actually hopeful. So far they have ruled right on most of these things. And, you have like a minority. This is why it's important to appoint constitutional type judges. So far, so good on that one.
Well, right. But now how many, you know this better than me, how many federal judges are there? 500 or some large number around?
Yeah, there's not 500, but there's, I mean, it's a pretty large number. And
so you've got a situation. Yeah, it's good that the Supreme Court could overrule all this, but it's like the death of 1,000 cuts every time something gets delayed. And
but they're pulling the teeth out slowly. I mean, I think that now, I don't really think much of him, but Senator John Thune, the head of the Senate, has said, I don't know if he'll do it, that he's going to fast track Trump's nominations to the federal bench by use of what's called the nuclear option.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to get more constitutional judges. You have some of these judges, some of these federal judges are holding on, even though they're probably like 98 years old and they're not. Eventually it's going to be like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They're going to kick the bucket in office and Trump will he'll get the appointment. I think that there are now a good list of federal judges nominated by the Federalist Society, which is a good group. Leonard Leo, the head of the Federalist Society, I interviewed him before tape. I wish I had that. This was back in the 90s. A real straight shooter. This is, I mean, they're libertarian. They're like, we follow the Constitution. It's not perfect, but they've recommended some good judges. And Trump is going with those. He's looking to them to nominate judges. You have Russ Vought taking full advantage of the government shutdown to do the Project 2024, which I think he was one of the authors of. And that is to really, get rid of the swamp. I mean, get rid of something like, I think it's upwards of 100,000 federal employees have now taken the furlough offer, which is, I think, 9 months of pay in exchange for them resigning. It's worth it. Give them the 9 months as long as they go. It is turning into the largest reduction in the federal workforce since I don't know when. I mean, Bill Clinton actually tried it in his first year in office, but the criticism, he didn't like criticism. He wanted to be popular. He would look at his pollster. What do they think of me today? What can
Yeah.
I do to make people like me today? And so he was criticized and he backed down. Trump doesn't care. It's not popular to fire people. I get that. But it's also not popular to just take people off the street. It just isn't. It's not a good look. But Trump doesn't care. He's not in it for a popularity contest. He's doing the function of his office. And that's what's going to happen, I think, with this reduction in the federal workforce. You're going to have, in a way, the whole shutdown is backfiring. I don't think that people are blaming the Republicans for it. In fact, I understand that the last poll showed that 65% of people polled blame the Democrats,
Right.
and that Schumer is doing it because he's trying to save his ass from a challenge by AOC on the left and the Squad and Mamdani and all these communists in New York who are saying, hey, you have to do this by restoring funding for sex change operations for children and healthcare for illegal aliens, most of whom don't even know they're getting healthcare. The money goes into someone's pocket. It's a huge payoff. And so he's caved into that, thinking that it's going to save his political career.
What is his problem? I mean, has the guy ever in his entire life done the right thing?
Only if it means political power for him. I mean, there's actually a good documentary film of, not to get into a topic, let's not even go there. I'll just touch it briefly. The Oklahoma City bombing, right?
Yeah.
Where you had Chuck Schumer just elected as a representative from New York. Unheard of. He made his bones with testimony where he's shrieking in Congress that there's a right-wing conspiracy and that we have to suspend aspects of the law under terrorism legislation, which he was proposing. Barney Frank was on board with it too, which would mean that people could be taken off the street and tried without facing their accuser, tried in secret courts, put in prison without facing charges. Some of these things of which happened under Biden, by the way. And all of these really undemocratic rules under the guise that the country was having an emergency. Meanwhile, they were covering up events around that. We don't even know to go into that. I got in trouble for talking about that during my campaign against Barney Frank. I don't want to talk about some of the things that, happened to me, frankly, and that were not pleasant. But it's a hot issue even now. The point is that there's a lot of deep state stuff around that. And he made his bones by carrying the water for that and making. Another person involved deeply in that was former Attorney General Merrick Garland, who was the government's lawyer, who became to prominence by being the cover-up person. Let's just put it that way. Tidying things up around what happened there. I don't really want to go into that too deeply. I'll just say that Schumer, to get back to the subject, is, he's deep state, he's ambitious, he's driven by power, and he's going to do whatever he has to do. He doesn't give a damn about anything else. Starve the country over his miserable political career. That's what they're doing now. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think they're going to, what do you think? I think it's going to collapse.
I think, well, there are a number of factors. First of all, the guy's old and tired, and this thing has backfired on him, I believe. And he's a complete coward in that, he's worried about AOC, who's a blithering idiot.
Yeah.
Good. Go ahead. Have a debate with her. Even
I know, she's just dumb.
Yeah. But he is walking around as such a craven individual. And then you ask yourself, what's the point? All right. The guy's old enough. You know what? Hang it up. You made all this illicit money. Maybe you can spend your sunset years, not having this confrontation all the time, not looking like your glasses are going to fall off your nose, whatever. But they're,
He's
they're,
he's debauched by power. I don't think with him it's even an issue of money. I mean, look, I got a little glimpse of this myself when I ran for office in a small way. It's very intoxicating.
yeah.
You feel like you're important. You have the media calling you up. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it matters. And they publish it and you see it in the paper. And then you're on television. It's very intoxicating. People get into it and they get hooked on it. It becomes your whole identity. It becomes your ego. It replaces your ego if you let it. I mean, I didn't let it, but in a way I did. It took me years to get over that.
Really?
Still not over it, actually. I mean, it's very intoxicating. All of a sudden, you wake up in the morning. The Boston Globe wants to talk to you. The Boston Herald wants to talk to you. The New Bedford Standard Times wants to talk to you. You're scheduling these. It's heady stuff. You start to think, gee, I really am important, aren't I? I really matter. What I say has weight. So it's very addictive.
Well, now you're raising a point that I've always hesitated to talk about, but maybe we should. All right. So how is that different from being some entertainment moron that's getting the same sort of adulation? But the difference seems to be, wait a minute, everybody knows that movie stars are idiots. But the same thing hasn't translated over.
It's actually not that different. When you're a movie star or you're like a rock star,
Yeah.
you don't want to let go of that. I mean, look, Frank Sinatra, didn't he, like, for about 20 years, he was doing his farewell tour. Then he waited a year, and then he does another farewell tour. He couldn't leave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you can't, there's something about that kind of attention that can be soul crashing. I mean, it's, you crave that kind of adulation because it replaces the need to actually look at yourself. It's like you become this sort of hologram almost, like this body of light. And you really start to believe, stuff that people say about you. Look, that's what happened to Michael Dukakis, who happens to be a nice guy, but the Boston Globe, right, for years, brilliant. We didn't know why. He was brilliant. He was the golden, brilliant innovations, and he didn't do much of. He wasn't all that brilliant. He's bright, but I mean, they built him up to this level of, like, an idol. And then all of a sudden he said, okay, well, I think I'm going to run for president. And they realized that they'd created a Frankenstein monster. It was too late. He wanted more,
Then he got into a tank.
And then he got into the tank, and he just wasn't quite up to it. I mean, it was an embarrassment, and it was a complete failure, unfortunately for him. I feel bad for him, but he got so wrapped up in his own hype. I mean, you open the Boston Globe every day, and you say, oh, Dukakis is brilliant. He's doing this, that it went to his head. I get it. It went to his head, and he became megalomaniacal in a way. And that's what happens. And then they fizzle.
How did he spend his declining years?
How does Dukakis?
Yeah.
He's not well liked. He's loathed, actually.
Oh.
The Boston Globe, and he's not a bad guy. I've met him a few times. He's actually a very nice, personable man privately. He gets very stiff when he's in media. But privately, he's funny. He likes to flirt. He likes jokes, but he just doesn't know how to, he transforms when the media looks at him. He's trying to live up to this brilliant thing. But the Globe recently did a puff piece on him, but he's basically gone. I mean, it's sad in a way. When John Kerry was the nominee in 2004, he had started out by being Michael Dukakis's lieutenant governor. That's not nothing, right? Yeah. In his resume, he didn't mention it when they were introducing him at the national convention.
I didn't know that. I
No,
didn't
they
know
didn't mention it. And not only that, but the National Convention was in Boston, and Michael Dukakis was specifically told he was not welcome. Don't come. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. It was like he didn't exist. He was a non-person. That's what happens. That's how the left does things, anyways. You know, there was no more. He was a bad memory. You know, we don't want to hear from him. But no, he's like occasionally he goes out, he does an interview. He's very humble. He's fine. You know, he actually turned out like decently. You know, I don't think he was a bad guy. He just got sucked in. He was, and he's not even particularly liberal either, by the way. But he just got sucked into this sort of vacuum of adulation that I think really took a toll on him. It certainly took a toll on his wife. And you know, that's what can happen. That's what's happened to Schumer. He's built up as the lion of the Senate, you know, this hero, and he wants to.
Depends how you spell that. But I was thinking
Right.
the Lyin. But
The lion, yeah, that's right. He is the lion of the Senate. But you know, it's true. But he's going to ride that thing right up to the end. I mean, it's like Ted Kennedy. They're never going to get rid of him. He had to die in office. The guy was a complete scoundrel. Everyone knew it in Massachusetts. It didn't matter. He was there. That was his seat, as he said.
his seat.
Yeah, and that's what when Scott Brown, who I also know, was asked during the debate, he goes, "How do you feel about running for Ted Kennedy's seat?" He was asked. He's like, "It's not Ted Kennedy's seat. It's the people's seat. It's Massachusetts' seat. That's ridiculous." And he actually got a lot of applause for that. It kind of was one of those moments that pierced.
What is he doing now? He disappeared.
He's running for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire, actually.
Oh, he moved. Okay.
Oh, yeah. He moved to New Hampshire. He didn't want to run against Ed Markey, who is a very shark-like guy. I mean, you don't mess with Markey. He's dirty as hell. He'll like, zzz, zzz. You know, you just don't want to take him on. Joe Kennedy the fourth made the mistake of taking on Markey, and Markey made mincemeat out of him, cut his head off. So Scott Brown passed on that, and he moved to New Hampshire. He had a summer house there anyway. And he ran for, I think, governor of New Hampshire and lost. And now the Senate seat has come up because Gene Shaheen is retiring, and he's running, and I think he's going to win. Apparently he's doing very well. For a while, he was ambassador for, I think George W. appointed him ambassador to New Zealand. I don't know, whatever. But they're not a bad guy. I know him. I don't like him, but that's okay. That doesn't matter. Anyway, to go back to get back to Schumer.
Does anybody like Schumer? I don't think so.
No, he's not. He's ruining the. I mean, in a way, just as well to keep him around. He's sinking the whole party.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's their leader. It's like he's awful. I mean, and then after Trump is elected, he's going on with this inane, poorly scripted speech with some stupid slogan. I don't forget what it was now, but it was like even the left and even MSNBC was embarrassed. It's like, oh my God, is this it? We can't do better than this. So let him stay in there. But the problem is that he's shutting down the government now. And I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, both sides are going to try to play to their advantage, but he's not going to come out of it looking good. The trouble with that guy, and you ask yourself, how did someone like that get as far as he did? And God knows, he's not likable. He's not smart. I just don't know what the magic secret is for Chuck Schumer.
He plays ball with the deep state. I mean, as I said, the Oklahoma City, not to go into a subject, he does the work of the deep state. Elizabeth Warren is another one. They're promoted. They get on the top of the Google search engine. Whatever. I mean, they have ways of making sure that those are the people that get the positions. Anyways, but I mean, I don't think it's going to turn against Republicans and President Trump, the shutdown. They've tried that. They thought it would. It didn't. They assumed that they could use the same old rhetoric they've used in the past. Oh, people are going to be starving in the streets. You're going to be taking milk away from mothers who are giving it to their babies, and they're going to die. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Maybe it'll work now. I don't know. They're still pushing it. What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's just going to play out, and it'll end like all these things do. I think people have a little less respect for politicians than maybe they did some years ago. I don't think anybody really cares, other than if you have a specific job.
Yeah.
That the funding stops, and you work for the federal government. But remember, most people don't work for the federal government. Most of the funds.
And this happens every so often, anyways. I think there was some changes in the law back in the 80s that made this situation happen the way it is.
Yeah.
It's not new. It's happened in all administrations. So I don't think that anything. Meanwhile, Trump is there brokering peace with Israel. He's doing big things, brokering peace with Ukraine. I mean, he is out there. I mean, there's great leadership. I just hope that he stays healthy. I hope he gets the right support that he needs. He can't carry everything on his shoulders like that. I frankly thought he seemed a little tired at the naval event, and for good reason. I mean, this is someone who's, the days that he puts in, it's just superhuman, and he is just human. He needs a break, and he needs an infrastructure that can take on the challenges. He needs another Alexander Hamilton. I don't know if there is such a person.
Well, who would you nominate for the Alexander Hamilton job?
There are a bunch of people. We've talked about them. I mean, they all seem to be taking pieces and bits of it. I think that Susie Wiles is very key as chief of staff, and she's been with him a long time. He trusts her. She seems like a MAGA person based on her public utterances. We don't know, but he's got people. I mean, I hope that Miller, we talked about. These are dynamic people. So we can only hope and pray. I mean, the guy over at CIA, Ratcliffe, he's going after, stuff. I mean, he's now exposed why they raided Melania Trump's underwear drawer, what they were looking for. He has that, and he's going to release it. So there are things that are happening. I just hope it's happening, and I hope it happens in a way that's not only timely, but in a way that doesn't play into the hands of those who are trying to create another, as you said earlier, another Reichstag fire. Anyway, Mike, what do you have coming up on your Substack?
Well, I was working on something, but taking a few days off this week, going with my wife back to visit some of her family in Wisconsin, and try to take it a little easy.
Great.
For once.
That's good.
But, a lot of things to write about. And then what happens is you try to keep things timely. You think, I'm going to write about this, but then some other big deal happens.
Well, like with Trump, every day is like Christmas. You wake up and you look at what's under the tree. It's like there's amazing things, happening, and in a way, great things, wonderful things. And it's, God willing, it'll continue like that. I mean,
I certainly hope so.
Indeed. So anyway, Mike, as always, thanks for joining me. God bless you. Take care.